So yeah, so when you think of when you see pi, what all do you wonder? What comes to your mind? What questions come to your mind? Right? Yeah. So we'll take a couple of minutes and just put down those questions in that. Oh, lots of wonderful questions, comments, facts have been shared. So we'll just spend some time on this. Okay. PIE or PIE? As far as I know, it's PIE.
Also, why the word pi? Any history behind it?
Yeah. So that does anyone else know? So it's like pi is one of the Greek letters, right? So why they chose pi, that I don't know. Okay, but maybe I think Archimedes started using pi, and then everybody started using it later. Maybe a reason.
But Ramanujan gave the closest value.
Gave
the exact the closest value of pi.
Okay, very interesting.
Using his, I think his convergent, using his convergent series.
Exactly. Yeah, I will say something more about this also. Ramanujan's limit. I will, yeah, if possible, I'll try to share the formula also. It's a terrific formula.
With respect to that, digits with Sunil told, I think it depends upon which type of computers they are using. I think more than million digits, I think it's they have found. I mean, it's 3.1428. It keeps on going up to million digits. I think they have found, and more than that, they have actually started analyzing on the occurrence of digits, how frequently the digits are occurring, and they are trying to figure out a pattern. Like for example, if you take a first 3.14 dot up to 100 digits. If first 100 digits they take, and they just simply analyze how many ones are there, how many twos are there, how many threes, how many zeros, something like that. Those kind of analysis.
Okay. So you're saying million digits, around million digits. So we'll like first take the most basic question. Like pi is the ratio of circumference to diameter, right? And how do we know that this is the same for all the circles? The question which Gregory ma'am raised, and is it true for other shapes also? The wonderful question. And second is, if we know that it's a constant, then how do we find its values? Right? Okay, actually, for the first question, any of you have any answers or comments to make? How do we know that the ratio is same in the first place for all the circles?
Just by measurement.
Measurement, yeah.
Actually.
Okay, so as an experimental fact, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So this has an experimental basis that the ratio, fine.
So, for example, simple experiment would be take the size of various bangles, and then keep drawing the circles, and then try to find the center, and the center, measure the radius, and then circumference, cut it. That is one kind of an experiment. Or thread. Another would be thread experiment, where simple thread experiment where you cut threads of various sizes, try to form circles, and then so if you do that for various sizes of circles, the ratio would be same. So it's been experimented based on experimental basis only. They are saying that it is a constant, but that constant is actually pi is something that's altogether a different story.
Okay, so to your point, which you mentioned now, as an experimental basis, I will put forth an example. I'm just not trying to get the right one. Just give me a minute. But the fact is, it just doesn't have an experimental basis. Okay, so people would have done the calculations and found the ratios as you said. Okay, but then later people were able to give a geometric proof for that also. Okay, but so this scenario of people actually taking different circles and measuring the ratio, right? So that what is, so by doing that, we can just say that, okay, all these values come to be close. So we can say that for all the practical purposes, the ratio is almost the same. This much we can say.
Sir, usually when I introduce the pi, because I'm handling 7th standard, 6th and 7th, so I tell children to bring 4 different radii circle, or with thick chartboard, chartboard. Then, so they bring it. I give thread to them. Okay, then I give ruler and everything. So they will measure the circumference, and also they find out the diameter of that, because already they marked it. So they come to that is 3.1. I take it as, by measuring mistake or error will be there when measuring. So I told them to observe carefully. Then they will measure 3 point something. It will come all in constant only, 3.1, 3.2, 3.14, 3.16, like that. I take a 1-digit number, that is first decimal. So then I told them these are the, then it's a constant, I say, that you take any radius of circle and everything, any different radius of circle. Then it's a constant, I say. Then this value is called, that is a pi.
Very
Then
nice,
I will,
very nice. Very nice.
because, but usually some children will ask, then is it constant or variable? They will ask them. Suppose
Correct.
pi,
So yeah,
pi,
so as they see, if you do this experimentation, we are bound to get different values, right? We are bound, and also measuring the circumference of a circle is a very challenging thing. But I strongly agree with Chalpi sir that very good way of presenting pi, because they get to see that, okay, this is something real associated with the circle rather than just as a number, as a symbol. They'll be able to make the connect. So I really appreciate you for that, and I strongly endorse that this is a very wonderful method to present pi to students. So now coming to this experimental basis of knowing that pi is constant or not, let's just take one hypothetical case. This is a circle. This is a circle, and from this is the center, and I draw an angle of degree 1 degree from this point. Okay, I'll line 1 degree, and this is point A, point B, and this is point C. Okay, let us just take this. Now, this is the statement. We just assume the statement. All of this length will be the okay. This is the, that is from B to A. Just first give the names. Okay, so the length of BA is half circumference, and the length of BC we will just we'll call it so half circumference dash. Okay, fine. So now this is a statement. Okay, now here's the statement that I'm making. In any circle, the half circumference dash, that is BC, the angle is 1 degree. Okay, now suppose I make a statement like this. Okay, now if you actually try to analyze this statement experimentally, so what do you think will happen?
We will tend to say that it is equal
try
because
to
the difference will be very
This
small.
experimental, right? So for all the practical purposes, we could take this half circumference HC and HC dash to be equal, right? For our, say, if you are trying to make some shapes in the sand or trying to build some structures, maybe this approximation is okay, right? But then in math, we have this extra component of, so we take an ideal circle, okay, we take the ideal circumference, ideal diameter, and then we ask geometrically are they equal? So for practical purposes, they being equal, and geometrically they being equal are like different, right? So, but definitely, I believe that in the starting stages, people finding that this is indeed the same, the ratios indeed the same. Thus, I think it might have an empirical basis only. Okay, but then after that, when the Greeks started developing geometry, so proving things geometrically became the norm. So, in this sense, how do we show? How can we say that this ratio of circumference of the diameter is constant for all those circles? So this is a wonderful question. Actually, so for this question, the proof that I know, I'm not sure if this was the proof which the Greeks had in mind, because okay, so pi was there with Greeks and even Babylonians and Indians. All the civilizations basically had, had used some values of pi, some approximations with pi. So this being constant, what argument, what reasoning they gave, I'm not still sure. Okay, so but this is something I will read up and tell. The proof that I know might be, I think, maybe a little bit advanced or something. It came later. I'm not sure, but still I will share that with you. This is one thing. So now that we know that C by D is constant, okay, now that we know that pi is constant, how do we value? We'll just consider this question. Now, how to find the value of pi? Okay. So, yeah, so what are your responses for that? So if you were to find from the scratch, if you were to find the value of pi, now that you have this definition, how do you go about finding it? So definitely, finding the value of pi has its empirical origins. The Egyptians used the value 3 for pi, and they were able to build all their great pyramids apparently with just this approximation. 3 and I think 3 1 by something, 3 1 by 8 or something. Yeah. So then the Greeks actually, so we know a lot about what Greeks did because they clearly documented what all they did. In this case, while Indians work, you have Aryabhatta giving methods to find the value of pi, which is just like very approximate, just very approximate to the actual value of actual theoretic geometric value of pi. So in the Greek works, you can see how they proceeded of finding the value of pi, and actually this also will lead to why C by D is a constant, but it has some intricate part. Okay, but I'll see how it goes. So yeah, as I said, it had its empirical origins of finding the value of pi, and then you can draw larger and larger circles and get some empirical value. Keep calculating the value of pi to so many digits. What does it mean to yeah? What does it mean to geometrically determine the value of pi? So these questions remain, right? So one of the first mathematicians to give a general method of finding the value of pi was Archimedes. Okay, so he gave a very ingenious method of finding the value of pi. This is what it is.
But
so we know that. So yes.
So it would have started with practically observing that the ratio is constant, and the ratio seems to be little more than 3. I mean, how to even make the jump to saying that the measurement that we have is not accurate enough?
Right. How do they know that it's not accurate? So when you say when a measurement is accurate or not, you already presuppose that there exists an actual value of it, right? So whenever we talk about error or whenever we talk about approximation, we always presuppose the existence of an absolute value, right? So this absolute value has its grounding in geometric reasoning. Okay, so just like
one more question.
Right? Yes, sir.
One. So if you
Okay.
look at the day-to-day life and everything, wherever you go, especially in our manholes and everything, our boxes, everything, circular box, that is lid is circular. So uh, the one of the questions raised by when I attend the math workshop, they ask why the manhole that is covered is made up of circular, not a square or rectangle. Why they ask? So that was very interesting. Actually, then if it is a rectangle or a square, that lid may fall anytime. But if it is circular, if you take it, so that diameter will be always equal to the lid. That's what. So it may not fall. It doesn't fall.
Oh,
So they make it as a circular. That one they are. That is.
oh,
That is
nice.
a very
Very
that is
interesting.
one more thing, sir. My question is: suppose when a man introduced the means of transport, that is transport or something, first he introduced cart, right? So
It
he
is what?
cart, that is bullock cart or
Ah,
whatever. So then more focus on circular. Why? Because of so then only pi started. I feel that is I don't know. It is having that is in a long term. That is doubt I have. That purpose they started more focus on circular and
circle.
I
Nice.
think pi value maybe more focus on from the Greek piece. I feel uh, they might have focused like on circular or pi value like that. I feel.
Correct. So that was a very nice speculation of how we got to pi. Actually, one thing that is missing in our classroom for teaching mathematics is this historical correct. Because mathematics is a subject which people were very closely involved with. So when we bring this connect and present it, there's a high chance that students will uh, uh, develop a closeness to this subject. But that's a nice speculation of how people would have started thinking about pi in the first place, right? Very nice. So coming back to this question of approximate value. Okay, so what Gauri ma'am asked was a very wonderful question. So suppose somebody a circle and he found this circumference and found the diameter and got some value. Now, how can anyone in the first place say that this value is an approximate value? That's a very interesting question. So when you use the word approximate, it presupposes the existence of an absolute, right? Okay. So yeah. So now, what is this absolute value? So again, this absolute value has a geometric basis. Okay. So this absolute value. Now we will define another term. Using our Devanagari Lipi. Okay. We will call this R. We draw a circle and R is defined to be, we'll just call this, this is AB. Okay, so R is a ratio of AB divided by circumference. Okay, this is the constant R which we are studying. Okay, experimentally try to find the value of AB by circumference, right? But then this has a geometric. If you take this ideal value of AB to the value of circumference, this value would be
3/4.
3/4, right? So AB and so yeah, this is 90 degrees. 90 degrees. So so the value of R is 3/4, clearly, right? But then if you do experimentally, you won't get. I'm 100% sure that you won't get 0.75. You will get somewhere close to it, right? So this is what I mean by finding a geometric value, okay, and finding a value for practical purpose. So you can just measure and find. Okay. Now for R, it turned out to be 3/4. It's not to be very easy. Now for pi, what do? It is very easy to find the length of sides in a polygon. We have, because people had mastered trigonometry polygon, but in a circle it is difficult, right? To overcome this, Archimedes gave a very ingenious method, which was in use till the 16th century. So Archimedes, which he gave it in the BCs, this method was in use till the 16th century. Till calculus replaced that method with infinite series. Okay, but unfortunately, we do not know how, when Aryabhatta gave his value or when Babylonians gave their value, how they gave. It is still not clear. There is a lot of scholarly debate going on here. Whether so some people say that Aryabhatta also used Archimedes method, but we do not know. So yeah, so I was talking about, we were seeing about Archimedes method of finding the value of pi. So I have drawn this circle here, and I've drawn some few polygons inside. Does this tell you anything?
Yeah, the more
Less
the
than the area of square. I think outer.
Less than the area
Of the outer polygon.
the number of sides in the inscribed polygon increases, it approximates the circle.
Exactly, right. So as we increase the number of sides, the polygon is inside a circle, it is coming more and more closer to the circumference of the circle, right? So Jagdish sir was talking about the area that also holds for the circumference, right? And now these polygons, so these are, and it's not so difficult to find the sides of the polygon. Okay, so one simple thing to start is, we can draw a circle, okay, and draw a square inside and a square outside, right? So now clearly the perimeter of outer square is greater than the circumference, which is greater than the perimeter of inner square.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now we are trying to find the approximation, unlike the experimental approximation that we get. Okay. So using this approach, can you find an upper bound and lower bound for pi? So we will take the radius to be r. Okay, we'll take the radius to be r. So but again, this is after understanding that the ratio of circumference to diameter is constant for all circles. Only then we can talk about pi as a fixed value, or we should talk pi for a circle of radius r. Okay, so we'll talk about pi circle of radius r. So using this inequality, can we try to come up with approximation for value of pi?
So the perimeter of the outer square will be 8r.
Okay.
That is equal to 4d.
That is equal to
4d. Pi is c by d, so upper limit is 4.
correct. So we know that now c by d is less than 4d by d. So now we know that pi has to be less than 4. So without without actually drawing circles, we can make this conclusion that this value has to be less than 4. Similarly, now if you take the inner square, what do we get?
So I'm getting the perimeter of the inner square as 4 root 2 into r.
So the lower the thing for pi would be 2 root 2.
Okay, so how did you calculate it?
We used
Anyone?
Pythagoras theorem. Yes, Pythagoras theorem. Yes.
Great, great. So how?
Yeah, that is the hypotenuse. R is the hypotenuse.
Okay.
That is diagonal. Yeah. So the diameter is also equal to R.
Yeah, if you take each side of the square as, let's say, x, you can calculate the diameter. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So if you keep like this, then we have 2r, or we have diameter is equal to x root 2. So x is nothing but d by root 2, which is d root 2 by 2. This is the value of one side. So the perimeter of the inner circle is, inner square is
2 root 2 into d.
so perimeter of inner square is, right? So this is the perimeter of the inner square. So what we know that circumference is greater than this perimeter of inner square. It is equal to 2 root 2 d. Right. So we have pi is equal to c by d is greater than 2 root 2. So on simple case of starting with a square, we get this inequality that pi is between 2 root 2 and 4 into 2. If we just take 1.4 and 4, it is 2.28. Okay, so we can have this 28. Sorry. Root 2 is 1.4.
1.4, it's 2.8.
1.4 is 2.82.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our calculation, a simple calculation is 2.8 and 4. So the simple calculation gives us bound. Okay. So now what Archimedes actually did was he increased the number of sides. Okay, he increased the number of sides. Are you able to see what will happen if you increase the number of sides? Is it possible to find the perimeter? Now, say I have a polygon of n sides. Now we'll take the case of an hexagon, and can we come up with a better bound? So in principle, this is exactly what Archimedes did, and this is what the further mathematicians did till the invention of calculus.
So the side of the hexagon will be R.
So you get the lower bound for pi as what now?
3.
3. Excellent. See, now without doing any question at all, we are able to say that pi is greater than 3.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And also we can
the upper bound.
this is approximate. So
yeah. So here, just a comment. So you see how just using theory and certain basic facts, we are able to predict what is happening in the real world. So here, the real world is, for example, we can take a plain paper and a pencil and a ruler. Okay, pencil, ruler, and the string and compass, and then all the other geometry tools. So what we are able to, what this hexagon actually predicts is, if you actually take a string and measure the outer circumference and divide by the diameter, we are sure to get value which is greater than 3. This thing we are able to predict. So the geometric theory is able to predict, right? So this is, so if you see in history of sciences, geometry is the first branch of, we can say that the first area of investigation on physics is geometry, and later all the other subsequent developments of physics had this as a basis, as this as a ideal to strive for, what geometry did. And this explains the heavy use of maths and mathematical methods in physics thereafter. So just by reason and by observing certain few things, we are able to predict what what will happen on real world. This is one. This is a very simple scenario, but it clearly brings out the power of this. Right. So for the hexagon problem now, we have, as many of you observe, that the side has to be R. Why is that? Anyone? Why is the side of the inner hexagon also R?
So it has to be isosceles because R and R are same. But since it's a regular hexagon, and so this gets divided into 6 equal parts, the angle at the center is also getting divided into 6 equal parts. Angle at the center is 60. So the remaining 120 has to be divided at 60-60 because of isosceles triangle property, and it ends up being equilateral.
Very nice, very nice, very nice. So this is an equilateral triangle. So this has to be R. So now we have, as you were saying, the lower bound. For the lower bound, we know that circumference is greater than the perimeter of inner hexagon, which is equal to 6R. This is equal to 3D. So pi equal to C by D is greater than 3. This is the lower bound for pi. So upper bound for pi we can get from the outer hexagon. Again, so ma'am, regarding your first basic, the most basic question, how do we know that pi is a constant, right? So even if you do not take it for granted and just take it as pi of d, that is pi of d means it is this ratio of circumference to diameter of a circle of diameter d. Okay, so if you take that, then all these inequalities apply to this pi of d also. Right, just a right comment. So all these arguments so far do not actually make use of the fact that pi is a constant.
So I was able to get outer hexagon perimeter as 6d by root 3.
Nice. Nice.
That is 2 root 3d.
Yes. So now in the outer hexagon, if you just name this point as A, B, and this point as C, what is OC?
OC is
3 by 2.
R.
OC is R, yeah. And this is 90 degrees. And what would this angle be?
30 degrees.
30 degrees. Why is that? The same argument. We are dividing it into 6 equal parts, 360 degrees. So each part will be 60. This will be 60. This will be 60. This will be 60. And this whole thing is also 60.
Once you draw perpendicular, the two right triangles are congruent.
Excellent.
That's why it's 30-30.
Terrific. So this is 30. Right. Then what would be? So what is the upper bound for pi that you got?
2 root 3.
2 root 3.
That is 3.46.
Wow. So we are close to right some from 3 to 3.46.
Yeah.
Just with the hexagon.
Yeah.
Right. So once we have this, let's just take this triangle AOB, AOC, degrees. This is R. Now, how do you find this value AC? AC is basically half the side. So
It's
now
R tan 30.
R
tan 30.
Exactly. So tan 30 is AC by R. So AC is R tan 30. So we'll just call it as tan 30 for now. So this length of this side would be 2r tan 30. This is the length of the outer hexagon. So what we have is circumference is less than 12r tan 30, which is nothing but 6d tan 30. Right. So if you complete the calculation, we get this pi is less than 2 root 3. Okay. And Gauri ma'am, what was the value here? So root 3.
3.4641.
3.46, yeah.
3.4621.
41.
Okay. So by drawing an hexagon, able to predict that in real world, if you take strings and measure the value of pi, it has to be between 3 and 3.46. This is the power of theory for you. Okay. So then how did pi get this value 22/7? Right? I mean the approximate value of 22/7. Till now, the actual thing is a mystery. I'll tell why it is a mystery. So what Archimedes did in his very important work is he considered this hexagon, right? So he started with an hexagon, not with a square, and he immediately got this inequality. And then from the hexagon he took a two-sided polygon, then a 24-sided polygon. So he kept on upping the number of sides from 6. Okay, so from 6 it became 12. Then from 12 it became 24, 48, and 96. Okay, using the similar method which we have been doing. Okay, he took this 96-sided polygon and tried to find the perimeter for this. Okay, so if you actually carry it out, and remember that Archimedes did not have the superior decimal notation that we have now. Okay, and even so, we make full use of the algebraic manipulations, right? So he not even have that. But despite this, he carried it out, and he found out the perimeter, and during that he was able to find that pi is upper bounded by 22/7. Okay, actually, if you actually carry this out for this 96-sided polygon, you won't get such a simple number 22/7. You will get some roots of something, root of 5 minus 4 root 3, the root of, so you will get so many roots. And at each and every stage, he approximated the value of root by a rational number. Okay, and in some cases he had to find an upper bound for the root. In some cases he had to find a lower bound for the root. Until now, it's a mystery on how exactly Archimedes found an upper and lower bound. So he did not mention his complete calculations. Okay, so so it was not just a question of finding upper bound and lower bound for the root, but also finding an easy upper bound and easy lower bound. So with all these calculations, in the end, he showed that pi for this 96-sided polygon, pi is less than 22/7. And from that time onwards, people started using this value 22/7. So here, actually, now, how do you prove that pi is constant? Right? Gauri ma'am's first question. So if you keep increasing, if you keep doing it for larger and larger n, where n is the number of sides, okay, and if you try to find the value of pi there, right, you will see a very interesting result. Okay, you will see a very interesting result. So you can try it out. You can try it out using trigonometry, and let me know what you get for a general inside polygon. For a general inside polygon, what would the perimeter be? Okay, so try to make an estimate here. Okay, and if you actually carry out this perimeter and then divide it by the diameter, you will see something interesting happening. Okay, then we'll be able to see how or why pi is constant. But still, I'm not sure if this was how the Greeks found it or what was the reasoning. It's not clear. That part. Okay, so yeah, pi, it is just a approximation, yeah, as you all mentioned. And after this, so this method was like, this was the method which was in existence till 16th century. Then people start coming up with infinite series. People started coming up with better and better infinite series. And then the point which Shankar made, the name towards the end, was Ramanujan gave an infinite series which gave the value of pi the fastest. That is, if you just calculate the infinite series for a few number of terms, it comes close to the value of pi. Okay, and I just want to use this opportunity to show you the formula which Ramanujan gave. It just shows his intuition in coming up with this formula. So please. So this is the formula which. So as I was mentioning, in 15th century, Leibniz and other mathematicians, and actually, so here there's another very interesting latest discovery. That the Kerala School of Mathematics also came up with the infinite series formula for pi. So this was much before the Europeans came up with the formula. Yeah. So this I forgot to mention. Sorry. So this was as early as the 13th century. Madhava and his successors, followers, they gave a fast value for, they gave a fastly converging sequence for pi. And then in the 20th century, look at what our Ramanujan has given. So look at, I still don't understand how he got this 9801, 396 power 4 power n, this 20,390 n. Yeah, so this is Ramanujan's formula. So I was like saying it before, that when Ramanujan wrote all these formulas and sent it to Hardy, right? Hardy said that these formulas have to be true because no one has the imagination to cook up these formulas. So this is a very nice place to show Hardy's point of view. Yeah. Right. So this is the fastest converging formula. And of course, as you should have seen, the coefficients are all like massive. But in computer, this infinite series gets us the value of pi very quickly. Right. So this is just some little bit of discussion on pi. If you want to know more about pi, there's a wonderful book named History of Pi by Peter Beckman. So these are some of the things which some of the responses which I had for the wonderful points that you had given. And how, and Sunil's question that pi is irrational. Okay, so now we have a geometric basis for the value of pi, right? Now, how do you show that it is irrational? Actually, people did not know till the 17th century that pi is irrational. Okay, so people were trying to find a rational value to it, or if it is a terminating decimal, they're trying to find it. So only as late as 16th, 17th century, people actually discovered that pi is irrational. And how did they prove that pi is irrational? That again, you making use of a bit of calculus, which we'll have to go a little deep for that. So now after giving this geometric basis for pi and giving that infinite series also, now we are in a position to calculate the value of pi till as many digits as we want. That is the current status of